Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Burn the Rulebook Podcast. This is the podcast where we break down everything you were never taught about menopause, mental health, and relationships one truth at a time. I'm Rachel Boyle, a licensed couples therapist, sex therapist, and certified menopause specialist. This podcast helps you understand what is actually happening to your body, mind, and relationships, and gives you real tools to move through life with clarity, calm, and connection. Let's get started. Welcome back to Burn the Rulebook Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the 4 pillars of sex and perimenopause. So let's be honest. Sex and perimenopause can feel really confusing. Maybe your desire has changed. Maybe your body doesn't respond the same way. Or sex with your partner might feel more like a chore than a connection, and that's never fun. And you might be wondering, is this a new normal? Is this just the way it's always going to be? And here's the truth. There is nothing wrong with you. What's happening to your body is part biology, part relationship dynamics, part sexual discovery, and part cultural messaging. And in this episode, I'm breaking it all down into the 4 pillars of sex and perimenopause so you can understand what's really going on, where to focus, and how to rebuild intimacy on your terms. So today, we're exploring the 4 pillars of sex and perimenopause so you can understand the hormonal shifts that are affecting your body, your brain, your moods, and your libido. You're also going to get clear on relationship dynamics and how they can shape desire. Also, we're going to be looking at rewriting the cultural scripts that have been holding your pleasure back. And by the end, you're going to have a really good starting place to make sex in midlife more connected, more satisfying, and more authentic to you. So why is it that sex gets more complicated during perimenopause? So many women come into perimenopause thinking something is wrong with them because sex feels different or doesn't feel as good. Also, desire can change and bodies can change and the relationship shifts. And the truth is that there isn't anything wrong with you. What's happening is biological, relational, emotional, and cultural all at once. And this really hits in perimenopause because this is whenever the hormones are wildly fluctuating. And that's why I like to talk about sex and midlife using the 4 pillars because it's never just about one thing. These pillars give us a roadmap to understand what's happening and where to start from. So I'd like for you to imagine that these 4 pillars are like the 4 legs of a chair. If you have one of the pillars missing, that chair isn't going to be stable. It's just going to fall over. So these pillars depend on all 4 being in place in order for you to feel good. So the first pillar that we're going to talk about is the medical piece. And under the medical piece is the hormonal foundation. And so during perimenopause, you've heard me talk about how there's big hormone shifts because your estrogen is fluctuating wildly. Your progesterone is declining, and so is your testosterone. And all of this affects your mood, your sleep, your energy, and yes, your libido. So while estrogen is really good for keeping your tissues elastic and lubricated, it's also really good for your mood and your well-being. Women are not going to want to have sex when they feel anxious or when they feel depressed or when they're feeling overwhelmed or when they're not getting enough sleep. So the medical piece is more than just about what's happening with your vulva. And if you're experiencing any vaginal dryness or soreness or the genitourinary syndrome of menopause, it's also the emotional component. The medical pillar is really important, and it's not just HRT. It's also, has your thyroid been checked? Are you getting enough sleep? If not, do you have sleep apnea, right? You want to make sure that you're feeling good physically, because if you're not feeling good physically, you're not going to be feeling great emotionally. And if you're not feeling great emotionally, then that can be a barrier towards wanting to have sex. Okay, so pillar number 2, do I like my partner? So here's the truth. You can love your partner and not like them. It's hard to want to have sex with someone that you don't like or feel connected to, or someone that you're carrying resentments against. So this is really important. So let's say that everything is great in the medical department. Do I like the person I'm having sex with? So if you're carrying any resentments, if you feel like you're carrying the bulk of the emotional and the mental load in the relationship, if you're having difficulty with repairing after conflict, this is really important. This is whenever you're going to need to find a really good couples therapist. And in midlife, many couples need to renegotiate how they relate to each other, usually in midlife, you've got teenagers. You may also have aging parents. So overwhelm can be a really big thing. And that gets even more intense during perimenopause. So sex can start to fade into the background. It can become less and less important, especially if you're having conflict and you're not connected with your partner. So the third pillar is, do I like the sex I'm having? So medical can check out. You can really like your partner and enjoy being with them. You have fun with them, but you may not be enjoying the sex that you're having. And so many women are not taught to really explore what kind of sex that they do want to be having. And a lot of women, when they first come in, I'll ask them, well, what kind of sex do you want to be having? If you were able to choreograph the whole thing and say, this is how I want it, what would it be? And most women, when I initially ask this question, they're not able to answer it just because they've never thought of it before. So I want you to think about what feels good for you. Feeling good in terms of pleasure. So in good sex, the destination is pleasure. It's not the orgasm, although the orgasm is really good. But the buildup and the enjoyment of getting to the orgasm is what's really important. Also to look at, is there an orgasm gap in the relationship? Some relationships, specifically heterosexual relationships, there is a pretty significant orgasm gap between the man and the woman, meaning that the man is having more orgasms than the woman. If that's the case, then that is skills-based and that can be normalized out so both people are really enjoying themselves. In one of my previous podcasts, I talked about the differences between responsive desire and spontaneous desire. So for those of you that have responsive desire, that means you may not feel like having sex at first, but once you start to cuddle and snuggle and talk with each other, then you start to become interested. That's very common in perimenopausal women, and it actually is more common in women than men. The final pillar are the cultural messages that you have received throughout your life. So our culture here in the United States likes to gender people when they're born. That means that if you come out with a penis, you get a set of operating rules for life, how to engage in this world as a boy. If you come out with a vulva, you get a different set of operating instructions on how to operate in this world as a girl. Our society isn't really good about giving each gender the whole book on messages. Whenever we get into partnerships and sex and relationship, we're each operating from our own book, and that book doesn't have the same information. So specifically for women, a lot of women carry negative messages towards sex, such as if you're a good girl or a good woman, you're not going to want to have too much sex. Also, your worth can be tied to your youth, your looks, and your fertility. And also for a lot of women, they're taught that their partner's pleasure matters more than their own. Now, these are not messages that are going to help you feel and engaging whenever it comes to having sex. So these are going to be really important to look at and explore what you've absorbed through your culture or through your family of origin or through your community. And when you start to look at these messages, you get to decide which messages you want to hang on to and which ones you want to get rid of. That's why I titled this Burn the Rulebook, because when you get to midlife, there's a lot of stuff that you're just like, yeah, this doesn't apply to me, and I don't want to have this affecting my life in a negative way anymore. And a lot of these old rules keep women silent and disconnected from their own desire. And perimenopause can be a moment of awakening where you throw out those old scripts and you get to write your own. So when women tell me I've lost my libido, what I hear is something in one or more of these pillars is out of balance. If it's medical, we look at getting hormones and medical treatments. If it's relationship, we'll explore couples therapy, where you get connection and repair. If it's about the quality of sex, we get curious about what your needs are and what pleasure looks like for you. And if it's cultural, we challenge the outdated scripts that are holding you back. Now, most women, whenever they come in for therapy, there usually is something going on in more than one of these pillars. And that's why it's really important that you find a trained sexual health provider so that they can look at this from all angles, because this is not a cookie cutter approach. Good therapy is tailored to what's happening specifically and uniquely in you and your relationship. When you address all four of these pillars, sex and perimenopause can actually become richer, more honest, and more connected, and way better than ever before. So let's circle back. Today, we looked at the four pillars of sex and perimenopause, which is the medical piece. Do I like my partner? Do I like the sex I'm having? And the cultural messages that you've received. So if you take anything away from this, let it be this. There is not something wrong with you. You are simply in transition. And with the right tools, support, and perspective, sex and midlife can be better than ever. Thanks for joining me today on Burn the Rulebook Podcast. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend who needs to know she's not alone. And if you're looking for more support, check the show notes for resources and ways you can work with me. And remember, there isn't something wrong with you. It's just that your body is changing. Thanks for spending time with me today. I hope you found something helpful, validating, or just a little more human in our conversation. Remember, while I'm a licensed therapist, I'm not your therapist, and I'm not a medical doctor. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and does not constitute medical or mental health advice. For personalized care, please consult with a licensed healthcare provider or mental health professional trained in the area you're seeking support. You deserve expert guidance that's tailored just for you.